Welcome to today's deep dive, where we'll be taking a closer look at The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Now, this book isn't your typical how to get rich guide. It's something much more interesting, I think.
Yeah, it really dives into, well, the psychology of money. It's less about, specific financial strategies.
Right. It's more about the mindset. I get it.
Exactly, the mindset you bring to your finances. And I find that fascinating because that aspect often gets overlooked.
It really does. And get this, the book's been translated into Tamil.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I think speaks to how universal these ideas are. It's not just for, Wall Street types or anything.
Absolutely. It's about understanding yourself and your relationship with money, which is something everyone can relate to, regardless of their background.
So you're looking for a clear, concise summary of the book's key points, and maybe get to know some of the characters that illustrate those points.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so let's jump right in. One of the big takeaways that really resonated with me was the idea of wealth as freedom. Can you unpack that a little?
Sure. So the book argues that true wealth isn't just about piles of cash. It's really about the freedom and independence that money can bring.
Okay, so it's not about the number in your bank account, but
Mhm.
what that number allows you to do.
Precisely. It's about having the financial security to pursue your passions, spend time with loved ones, or even just take a break from work without constantly stressing about bills. That sense of autonomy, that's what the book defines as true wealth.
I see. So it's less about being rich and more about having the flexibility to make choices.
Exactly. And the power to control your own time and your own life.
Now, you also mentioned that you're curious about specific financial instruments like stocks, bonds, hedge funds, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Does it cover that kind of stuff?
Well, to be honest, the book doesn't really delve into specific investment strategies.
Ah, so it's more about the big picture.
Right. But I think it lays a really strong foundation for making smart financial decisions by helping you understand your own biases and tendencies.
Oh, interesting. So it's like learning the psychology of the game before you even step onto the playing field.
Exactly. The psychology of money helps you recognize the mental and emotional factors that can influence your financial choices, regardless of the specific investment.
Makes sense. It's about understanding yourself first and foremost.
Exactly. And speaking of understanding, one of the things I really enjoyed about the book was how it used stories and anecdotes.
Oh, yeah. Housel is a great storyteller. And he brings these financial concepts to life through, captivating narratives.
And you had mentioned earlier it's packed with real-life examples. I think you even teased a story about a janitor.
Oh, right. Yeah, the story of Ronald Reed.
Oh, wait, don't spoil it. I want to hear all the details.
Okay, fair enough. But let's just say these stories aren't just entertaining, They really drive the point home. They stick with you long after you finish the book.
That's what I love about a good story. It helps make the concepts more relatable and memorable.
For sure. And that's what we're aiming for with this deep dive as well, to give you those memorable takeaways.
Absolutely. Now, before we get to the stories, I'm also curious about the Tamil edition you mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
What does that tell us about the book's message, you think?
Well, to me, it speaks to the universality of these themes, Financial psychology isn't something that's limited to one specific culture or language.
Right. Money is money.
Mhm.
And we all have a relationship with it no matter where we come from.
Exactly. These principles are relevant to everyone, regardless of their background.
It really shows you that the psychology of money, well, it transcends borders. So we've established that this book is more about the underlying psychology that drives our financial behavior rather than specific investment tips and tricks.
Exactly.
And it does it in a really engaging and relatable way.
Definitely. The stories really bring it all to life.
So I'm really eager to hear some of these captivating stories and delve a little bit deeper into the key themes here. Where should we go next on this journey of financial self-discovery?
Well, to really understand the psychology of money, I think we need to meet some of the fascinating characters that Housel introduces. They'll help us grasp the nuances of these concepts and hopefully provide some valuable insight for our own financial lives.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's meet these characters.
Okay, so remember Ronald Reed, the janitor.
Oh, yeah. The one who amassed a fortune. I'm dying to know how he did it.
Well, he lived a remarkably frugal life. Really frugal.
Okay.
Worked as a gas station attendant, then a janitor. Drove a beat-up old Toyota. Wore secondhand clothes.
So the epitome of living below your means. But how did he turn frugality into millions? That's the part I don't get.
Well, that's where the long-term thinking and the investing comes in. He diligently invested a portion of his earnings in blue-chip stocks for decades.
So no risky bets, no like get rich quick schemes.
Yup. Just steady, disciplined investing over time. He understood that slow and steady wins the race when it comes to building wealth.
Huh. That's pretty amazing. It
Hmm.
really challenges the idea that you need to be some kind of high roller to be successful.
It does, doesn't it? His story really highlights the power of compounding. Over time, even small, consistent investments can grow into something really significant.
Wow. So patience and consistency were his secret weapons, not yachts and sports cars.
Exactly. And that's a core theme throughout the book, this idea that building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about making informed choices consistently.
Not chasing the latest trends.
Right. Not
Yeah.
getting caught up in the hype. Now, we've talked about Ronald Reed's story,
Uh-huh.
but did you want to hear that cautionary tale, the flip side?
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that.
Okay, well, Housel also tells the story of Rajat Gupta. He was a brilliant businessman, former managing director of McKinsey and Company.
McKinsey. That's a prestigious firm, right?
Oh, yeah. Top tier.
He must have been incredibly successful. So what went wrong?
Well, despite his accomplishments, Gupta was convicted of insider trading. And that illegal act, well, it cost him his reputation, his freedom, ultimately, his fortune.
So even someone at the top of their game can make choices that have serious consequences. It makes you wonder, what drove him to take that risk?
That's a great question. And that's where the psychological aspect really comes into play. Housel uses Gupta's story to illustrate the dangers of greed, that allure of getting ahead no matter the cost.
Right. It's a reminder that ethical behavior, good judgment, those things matter, even when it comes to money.
Absolutely. And sometimes that desire for more, it can lead us down a dangerous path.
It certainly can.
And this kind of leads us back to another concept that the book talks about a lot, the idea of enough.
Enough. Okay, I'm intrigued. How do you define enough when we're talking about money?
Well, it's not about a specific number. It's more about recognizing that at some point, more money doesn't necessarily translate into more happiness or fulfillment.
So it's not about choosing some arbitrary sum, but finding that point where you have financial security and the freedom to do what's actually important to you.
Exactly. It's about creating a life where money serves you. It's
Yeah.
a tool to help you reach your goals, not something you're constantly chasing after.
That's such a powerful concept. It's like the book is prompting us to step back and examine our own relationship with money.
It is. It's about figuring out, are your financial pursuits actually aligned with what truly makes you happy?
Yeah, I like that. So we've talked about the power of long-term thinking and the importance of defining enough. But are we missing something?
Well, one key insight from the book is that we often make financial decisions based on emotion rather than logic.
Oh, yeah.
And that can really trip us up.
I think we've all experienced that, right?
Yeah.
Those impulse buys, the decisions driven by fear.
All the time. And those emotional reactions can completely derail even the best laid financial plans. So the book encourages us to recognize those patterns in ourselves, so we can make more conscious choices.
That makes a lot of sense. But I feel like we've just scratched the surface here.
We have, but that's a good thing because it means there's so much more to explore. Like the concept of risk tolerance, for example. That's something the book delves into quite a bit.
Okay, so we've talked about the power of long-term thinking and the importance of defining enough, and even how our emotions can sometimes get in the way of making smart money choices. But you just mentioned risk tolerance.
Right, that's a big one.
Can you remind me what that means exactly
Yeah.
in this context?
Sure. So risk tolerance is basically about understanding how much financial risk you're comfortable taking.
Okay.
Some people, they're totally fine with riding the ups and downs of the stock market.
They enjoy the roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly. But others, they prefer safer, more stable investments. And there's no right or wrong answer here.
Right.
It's about finding what aligns with your personality and your financial goals. What works for you.
So it's not just about knowing, like, what to invest in, but understanding how you want to invest based on your own comfort level.
Exactly. The psychology of money really emphasizes that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to investing.
Right, because what works for one person might be a total disaster for someone else.
Exactly. It's about self-awareness, making choices that align with your risk tolerance.
I mean, it makes sense, right? If you're constantly stressed out about your investments, that's probably not going to lead to good decision-making.
No, not at all. And it's not just about knowing your risk tolerance in a vacuum.
What do you mean?
Well, it's also recognizing that it can change over time or in different situations.
Oh, I see. So, like, someone nearing retirement might become more risk averse because they need to protect their savings.
Exactly. It's not a static thing, you need to reassess it periodically.
Okay, so financial planning is a constant process, not just a one-time thing.
Right. And the psychology of money encourages readers to check in with themselves regularly, reevaluate their goals, make sure they're still on the right track.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. I feel like I'm starting to see money in a whole new light.
Me too.
It's not just about numbers and spreadsheets. It's about psychology and emotions and self-awareness, which I never really thought about before.
And that's what makes The Psychology of Money such a great read. It really encourages you to think differently about wealth, about success, and ultimately about happiness.
Absolutely. So let's bring it back to our listener. You were looking for a concise but hopefully insightful summary of the psychology of money. What are the main takeaways, the things you should remember long after this deep dive is over?
Well, first remember that true wealth is about freedom and choice, not just how much money you have in the bank. Second, embrace the power of long-term thinking, that slow and steady approach. And finally, understand that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to money. It's about knowing yourself, knowing your risk tolerance, and figuring out what truly matters to you.
Great summary. And what about those characters we talked about, Ronald Reed and Rajat Gupta? What can we learn from their experiences?
Well, Ronald Reed, the janitor who became a multimillionaire. His story teaches us that building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about patience, consistency, and smart choices over time.
And then on the flip side, we have Rajat Gupta, who reminds us that even brilliant people can make bad decisions, especially when greed gets in the way.
Exactly. It's a reminder that ethics and sound judgment are just as important as financial knowledge.
Well, this has been an incredible journey through the world of financial psychology.
It really has.
And it's clear that The Psychology of Money isn't just some dry finance book.
Right.
It's a guide to understanding ourselves and our relationship with money.
I totally agree. And hopefully it encourages people to look inward a little bit.
And on that note, we want to leave you with this. Now that you've had this little glimpse into the psychology of money,
Yeah.
think about this. What's your relationship with money? What beliefs and biases might be holding you back from achieving your own financial goals? And ultimately, from living a more fulfilling life?
That's a great question to consider. And if you're interested in exploring these ideas further, we highly recommend checking out The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, happy reading.